Hello and welcome to the program UFO Warning. In this episode, we're talking about Tom DeLonge says aliens might be demons. That's correct. Tom DeLonge says aliens might be demons. I thought this would be interesting to look at because this is something quite a few people have been saying lately. And since Tom DeLonge's kind of been on this ride for a while, and people in general do seem to have some interest in what he thinks because I do think he's seen some things, I thought we'd take a look at it. My interest got piqued when this came up on my Twitter feed the other day. A fellow named Jay Anderson posted. He says at the project Unity, Tom DeLonge was once hanging out with Dr. Stephen Greer doing CE5 protocols outside Area 51. This is this meditation stuff they do, trying to draw in the UFOs. A lot of you, I'm sure, are aware of that. Says, then Tom got invited to the Pentagon. Now Tom believes aliens are ancient archon-type demons who fear invoking the name of Jesus Christ. What happened to Tom? And it's got a picture of Tom DeLonge on here. That's a fair question. I wasn't 100% sure about all this, although I had heard some things. We've talked about before the story of Tom saying he was invited to look at some stuff, I guess. He didn't say exactly what it was. Where he said that afterwards he was so upset by it that he couldn't sleep for 3 days. Now, I did consult AI with this. It says Tom DeLonge, co-founder of To the Stars Academy, has stated that UAP, or unidentified aerial phenomena, I still like to call these things UFOs, entities are not necessarily extraterrestrial, but rather interdimensional, time-traveling, or non-human intelligence that aligns with historical religious depictions of demons, jinn, or archons, it's Archons. He suggests these others, quote, have been there for thousands of years and manipulate humanity. Now, this reminds me a little bit of some of the stuff that Tim Burchett's been talking about, and even Representative Anna Paulina Luna goes on and says, interdimensional, not planetary. DeLonge has stated on Coast to Coast AM that evidence does not suggest that they are merely traveling from other planets. I get that. When I had my experience, clear back, 2011, back that July morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, this thing just seemed like it was coming into our space. I mean, I saw the lights from 3 or 4 miles away. They were so bright. I thought they were flashing blue. I thought for sure there has to be an accident up the road or something. It looked like emergency lights, these blue flashing lights. But then when I got up on this thing, it was almost as if it was just emerging out of the ditch. And it was changing size as it went across the highway directly in front of me, and there in the medium of the road. It's looking at the time, I just couldn't put it all together. I'm still thinking machine. I didn't even believe in these things. But after a while thinking about, and talking to the representative from MUFON, I didn't even know about Newfork back then, but after talking to him, and he explained to me, well, what you described to me couldn't have been the same size of craft of what you saw emerge from the ditch compared to what it was when it was in the center, between the four-lane highway. And I'm thinking about this, and I'm thinking, that's so weird. Not only did it seem like it drew in all these other things, in the environment, the blinking light, say, like a cell phone tower light, the color of the craft with like the beams of a bridge overpass, say, the texture, concrete, everything about this thing is as if it was expressing itself. And it was taking on this form based on the stuff around it. And it was emerging out of nothing or from some other dimension into our dimension, because it was actually changing size as it just kind of appeared. And so this makes perfect sense to me. And ever since then, I've thought, I don't think we're talking about little green men. And the thing I saw, it was shaped almost like a stool, 4 legs, kind of going up toward the top, much wider at the bottom than the top. There was no place on this craft for a compartment for aliens to emerge from. It was just it. The thing I saw was it. maybe the word phenomena is a better word in some ways, because it was more of like a phenomena than it was an object. And amazingly to me, nobody else saw it. I guess I only saw one other vehicle on the road that night that might have seen it, so I don't know. Okay, it goes on, it says, historical context. He argues these entities are the demons, jinn or archons of all ancient religious texts combined. It does seem like we come across these entities in pretty much all the major religions. Manipulation. He has indicated these forces manipulate human perception and feed on negative emotions to control humanity, as discussed on Reddit Aliens. Now, I'm not sure about all this negative energy stuff, although if you listen to some of these demonologists, there was this fellow on Rogan, I've seen his outtakes, and his theory is these things do feed off of drama, negative energy. That would make sense, especially if you look in a lot of biblical passages that talks about not complaining. It kind of really warns against this negative talk, negative energy, I guess you would call it. Maybe these things, maybe that is what they feed off of, and that's what they're trying to put out there. I don't know. As far as the perception goes, that would explain why sometimes these things show up and one person sees them and one person doesn't. Now, the night that I had my experience, I've been playing cards all night, turned on the AM radio, didn't even have a smartphone at that time. I had a cell phone, but not a smartphone. It was 2011. And on comes Coast to Coast and George Norrie and says, tonight we're talking about UFOs. And I just laughed to myself. I thought, that is just the stupidest thing, but I have to listen to these. I happen to listen to these silly people talk about this because it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I won $100 playing card. I'm in a good mood. Let's listen to some of the rubes out there talking about their UFO experience. And then I see one of these things. So it's almost like, looking back, like maybe it was a message directed toward me, because I was not a person who believed in these. I was the opposite of that. He frequently refers to them as the others or intelligence rather than aliens to describe a more complex, potentially sinister phenomena. And then end of days, he suggests these interactions are linked to periods of intense tribulation, as noted in discussions on Amazon. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'll say one thing. When I had my experience, I did have a kind of a crappy little cell phone that did have a camera on it. And the thought did cross my mind, I could get a picture of this. But honestly, I was a little scared. I mean, I don't know about if I would say scared like in, really worried. But I've said this before. To me, the feeling I had in that moment was like if you've ever been to one of these little rundown circuses that used to come, like we used to have them come around, and where they'll have some poor elephant in there. And the elephant, sometimes they'll give the kids rides on it. I don't think so much anymore. But the elephant invariably is chained to a giant stake or maybe a couple stakes in the ground. And people are walking around it there. And I'd taken a friend of mine's kids to a circus years ago, not that many years before I had this experience. And of course they wanted to see the poor elephant. It's like, oh boy, really felt sorry for it actually. But here's this elephant, and even it's an Indian elephant, obviously, because I think the Africans are just too wild for that. But that thing is so big. And you're sitting there looking at it, and I'm thinking to myself that elephant really wanted to pull that chain out of the ground. I think he could do it. I didn't see any kids running up there trying to pet that elephant. I didn't see any adults reaching across the little metal barrier they had around it. People seemed to have a genuine respect, if not fear, for that thing because it was so big, and I think even the simplest among us could realize that if that elephant really got enraged, it could hurt some people. It could delete some people. And when I saw that UFO, my experience, I couldn't say that I felt like it was evil or good or bad or anything like that. But I felt like I really don't want to stop and try to find out. I just kept the car on cruise control and drove right on by, even though I could have almost just stopped that car, put my hand out the window, and almost touched it. It was that close. It was one of the strangest things in my life. And so, maybe these things are some kind of resident evil, and I didn't have an experience with the thing being evil, but boy, it sure felt weird. And my spidey senses were sure off the charts. Now, I did have to consult AI on this because it seems like the news cycle has expunged a lot of Tom's earlier comments, really, as far as mainline news goes, and what you do find is really critical of him. But according to AI, it says Tom DeLonge has spent years promoting the idea that the UFO phenomena may be more complex than simple nuts and bolts extraterrestrials. Over time, his views evolved from believing UFOs were purely alien spacecraft to suggesting that at least some entities behind the phenomena could be interdimensional, manipulative, or even what older cultures might have described as demons. In interviews, DeLonge has connected UFO encounters to consciousness, religion, folklore, and paranormal experiences. In a 2021 interview with Esquire, he said studying UFOs eventually leads into religious text and ancient human history. One of the strongest examples of aliens as demons or interdimensional beings interpretation comes not from a formal statement by DeLonge alone, but from discussions surrounding his interviews and comments. Reddit users and UFO researchers have repeatedly referenced DeLonge, saying some people inside the U.S. Defense Department and intelligence circles view the phenomena as demonic or spiritually deceptive. According to those discussions, DeLonge has described entities existing outside normal human perception, beings influencing human conflict and fear, and possible links between UFOs and consciousness, and government insiders believing the phenomena has been present throughout human history. Well, we've got images of what look like these things on cave walls. I mean, clearly they've been around for a long time. The famous couldn't sleep for 3 days story comes from DeLonge recounting meetings he allegedly had with senior military and intelligence officials connected to the United States Department of Defense and Pentagon UFO world. In radio interviews and podcasts, DeLonge claimed he entered those meetings assuming UFO secrecy was mostly about technology and government control, but after hearing what officials allegedly told him, he said the implications were much darker and psychologically disturbing. He later said he didn't sleep for 3 days. Importantly, DeLonge has never publicly given a precise, verified explanation of exactly what he was told, but based on multiple interviews and discussion, the theme appears to include the phenomena manipulating human belief systems, non-human intelligence influencing civilization over thousands of years, the possibility that religious visions and UFO encounters are connected, and the idea that humanity may not fully understand what these entities actually are. Some UFO researchers interpret DeLonge's comments as leaning toward the interdimensional hypothesis rather than the classic extraterrestrials from another planet. Others connect his ideas to older religious concepts of demons, angels, or trickster entities. However, there is no publicly released Pentagon evidence confirming these claims. DeLonge's role in modern UFO culture became more significant after he co-founded the Stars Academy, which included former intelligence and defense officials like Louis Elizondo and Jim Simovan. Now, I would just interject here and say Louis Elizondo, I think he's kind of played both sides of this. He's come out and talked about these Collins elite. At one point, I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but at one point I think he more or less blamed them for getting him kicked out of the Pentagon, or eliminating his funding, I guess I should say, because these people believe that these entities were demonic and we shouldn't be pursuing it. Okay, it says his organization helped bring attention to leaked Navy UAP videos later reported on by major media outlets. Yeah, we've talked about that a lot. I didn't exactly appreciate the way those videos were released. Looks like the same thing is kind of happening again with this latest Corbell movie, where he's releasing videos via his movie that are government property, and as far as I'm concerned, should be on the government UFO website. DeLonge has also described his own alleged paranormal UFO experiences in a 2015 interview with Paper Magazine, later summarized by multiple outlets. He claimed that while camping near Area 51, he awoke unable to move, heard voices outside his tent, experienced static electricity sensations, and later believed he had lost time. Sounds to me like that could be an abduction. Critics argue many of these experiences resemble sleep paralysis or speculative interpretation rather than evidence of extraterrestrials or demons. Even within the UFO community, DeLonge remains controversial because he mixes spiritual, paranormal, intelligence community, and UFO narratives together. If anything, to me, that's a redeeming quality about Tom DeLonge, is that he has an open mind about this stuff. Still, his influence on modern UFO disclosure discussions has been substantial, especially after mainstream releases of Pentagon UAP footage and renewed public interest in unidentified aerial phenomena. I have to say, I started out really not liking Tom too well because it seemed like he was so far in bed with the Defense Department, and they were doing this work with the metamaterials, and it just seemed like maybe he was being used a little bit. But as time has gone on over the last, 10, 12, 15 years, I really feel like Tom's matured quite a bit, and he's become more open-minded and not just being a tool of the Defense Department, the Pentagon. And I'll be the first to admit I've developed a lot more respect for the guy. Tom DeLonge is not the only one who's talking about these things and how there could be a negative side to this, even as going so far to say these things are some kind of spiritual manifestation. Congressman Tim Burchett has made a couple comments about this, and wow, it really gives a person pause. Now, to begin with, here's about a 1-minute clip of Representative Luna and Representative Burchett talking about not getting all the files, and it says Tim Burchett says access to possible UFO evidence was blocked by the intelligence community. If someone can pierce the veil of government and block access to Congress, who the hell is in control? Now, this was tweeted by UAP Reporting Center just yesterday, May 12th. Go ahead and listen to this 1-minute clip. You can tell that Burchett's really upset when he's talking to the press about this. They're in a crowded hallway.
We were denied access to the SCIF, and so to my knowledge, what's going to happen now is not only do we have the support of the chairman, but they're going to get a nice letter from Congress. And as you heard, Representative Ogle said, if we're denied, we're going to use the Holman rule. We'll defund the position.
And I was told by leadership that it was blocked by the intelligence community, not the intelligence committee, but the intelligence community. And that is a very chilling effect. If someone could reach through the veil of government and pierce it to the point of we do not have access to something, you got to start asking yourself who the hell's in control. And I think it'd be wise for you all to start looking at some financial disclosures of some of those corporations, some of the people who do the stonewalling in this town. And that's what we're going to start doing. We're going to start talking to people. We're going to start naming names. Yeah, I want you to think about this. Think about this, that something with the capabilities of traveling light years, not showing a heat signature, the energy capabilities of that would put the Pentagon out of business. We wouldn't be fighting these worthless wars overseas over oil, and American boys and girls wouldn't be dying. It would put the war pigs out of business, and they'd have to go somewhere else. And I'm all for that. I'm all for that.
You can hear Representative Burchett there. I mean, he is really spitting fire. It's important, I think, to notice his verbiage. He talks about war pigs. And what did we just say? Tom DeLonge was saying that these things feed off of negative energy, feed off of human suffering. Well, what causes more human suffering and negative energy than war? Maybe what's happening here is this deep state that he basically is talking about. These people that are able to put up this wall of secrecy that he tells us about. Maybe they're in league with these things. I mean, they get the new technology. These things keep us in a state of constant war. They feed off this human suffering. It's just like a pool of human suffering that's created, almost like a sacrifice to these things, that they're feeding off the trauma of the human condition. And they're able to do that in part because they're in collusion with what can only be described as the deep state. This secretive, hidden group of people, public and private, that is able to bury this stuff. And he's talked about it before. I think Tim Burchett's even talked about how, yeah, you can FOIA the government all day long, but if this technology, if these secrets are shifted over into the private sector, well, good luck with that. Because now it's buried where you can't get to it. Send Lockheed or any one of these other big defense companies a FOIA request and see how that works out for you. Probably not too well. We have about a 1-minute clip here. This is where Burchett's on the Sean Hannity show talking about the secret of this veil of secrecy that they can't seem to penetrate through. He's talking to Sean Hannity, and lucky for Tim, he actually was able to get it. He was actually able to get in word in edgewise against Sean Hannity, and which that's hard to do. If you're on Sean's show, it's hard to be able to actually talk. He pretty much talks the whole time, I think. But yeah, let's listen to this real quick. It's just a minute.
We have aircraft, do we?
I think we do, but I don't think they're quite in our hands. I think what they've done is handed out to some of our defense contractors or some private entities, because that way they're not FOIA-able, Freedom of Information Act. Say we handed something off to Ford Motor Company. We haven't, I don't think. But if we had, and me as a congressman could not FOIA that from Ford, but I could if it was the FBI, if we really trusted them to give us the right information, which I don't always. But I think that's what they've done with it. And they've compartmentalized this stuff so much, Sean, that it's very difficult. You'll have somebody within one department tell you that it does not exist. We don't, a little guy with a man bun in the Biden administration telling me we don't have data points on this. And then, the next week, I'm getting briefed by somebody in the same alphabet agency that's telling me that, in fact, they do exist. And here's the footage of what we're seeing, and we don't know what they are.
Well,
and why in the world would these pilots, go ahead, I'm sorry.
You can hear Tim there. He's saying the same thing I've been saying for a long time. This stuff's being shifted off into private hands, and that's the apparatus of the deep state. Now you'll notice that was a 1 minute little rant there by Tim, and he was just dropping truth bombs left and right. After a minute 5, Hannity had to interrupt him again, and that's why I can't stand to watch the guy, because he doesn't interview people, he talks over people. But nevertheless, not to take a dump on Sean Hannity, but that was, I thought, a really cool little comment there by Tim Burchett. I just wish that Sean could have been quiet for 4 or 5 minutes and let Tim really go on and let us know what he thinks happening with this stuff. Now I want to finish up with this last clip with somebody who actually is a really good interviewer. I mean, I don't agree with all of his politics all the time. He seems a little bit kind of a on the fence kind of guy about a lot of stuff. But that's Joe Rogan. It's about a 3-minute clip here. He's talking to Tim Burchett, and he's talking about how when Jimmy Carter saw this stuff, he actually cried. And I find that to be so strange. Why would he cry? Talking about how it affected his religious beliefs and everything else. Very, very weird stuff. Let's take a listen to this right here.
I don't think Trump knows. I mean, these people have kept this stuff secret. Here's another thing. I was in one meeting, and a guy said, what about the president on this? And he said, the president's on a need-to-know basis. Now, that's a federal employee saying that he or she has information that the president is not allowed to see. And I just was aghast, man. I said, that's the kind of crap you see on the sci-fi network or something. Right. But that'd be the title of my book. I mean, that ought to tell you right there that this thing is a cover up. And it's kind of like MK Ultra. I don't think we're going to get they're not going to tell us everything. I really don't. I don't think they're going to give us half of what we should get.
But you think we're going to get something?
I think we'll get something.
Do you know Hal Puthoff? You know Hal Puthoff?
Do what?
Do you know Hal Puthoff?
No,
Do
I
you know
don't.
who he is?
I thought you knew how put off you are right
No,
now.
no.
I was like, how put off are
Hal
you?
Puthoff was in the documentary as well. He was in the Age of Disclosure, and
Okay.
he was a guest on the podcast. And one of the things that he told me is that during the Bush administration, they brought in him and a bunch of other scientists and thought leaders. And what was explained to him was that they are considering disclosure, and that there have been visits of these super intelligent beings from somewhere else, that we have retrieved crashed vehicles, and that we have biological remains.
That's correct.
And we are talking about disclosing. We would like you to make a list of all the ways that it'll negatively affect society and all the ways that it'll positively affect society, and attach a numerical value to these things. And they all did it, and every one of them said the negatives far outweigh the positives in terms of the impact on government, the impact on the economy, religion, all these different factors, and how it would disrupt society. And in the end, they decided not to disclose.
Yeah, I've heard that many times. I just don't buy it.
You don't buy it?
I don't buy it. I mean, I don't doubt what he's saying. I know all those guys. Now that you mentioned it, I was in the movie, of course, and I met them all afterwards. But I just don't buy that. I think we should know. Let us know. Let us decide.
You know, I believe that too, but I wonder what that meeting was like, and whether or not they were being truthful to these people, or whether it was a thought experiment.
Allegedly, when they told Jimmy Carter, he cried.
That's what I heard too.
Yeah. It was. I won't go into all of it, but I was in a meeting.
What would make him cry?
I don't know. Well, he's a very sensitive guy. But
I understand, but I mean, like,
he was also,
I cried when I saw Old Yeller.
Yeah, I did too. Still cry. But they, he had seen a UFO. You know, he was on a Navy sub, nuclear sub, and I don't know if he saw that when he was on the sub or not. I can't remember. But you know, here he said, "That guy was president of the United States," and
They told him something, and supposedly he cried.
And I was in the meeting, and that was brought up, and the guy that they were trying to trip up gave the date of that meeting, and he said, "You can go to the Carter Library and pull up that date, and you'll know." There's one person, they omitted their name, which who knows who that was, but they list the meeting and where he was when he got that briefing.
Wow.
We don't know for sure what was said. One rumor is that Carter was told that he was on a need-to-know basis. He didn't need to know. Other people have said that he was told enough that basically turned his world upside down, that these things were in control, that religion was nothing but a paradigm created by these entities to control people. That statement alone could be the deception that's spoken of in the Bible, where these things come back to deceive humankind, and the whole thing just kind of, goes from there. Now, as far as Carter's personal experience of seeing a UFO, set the record straight on that. As far as I know, as everything I have read, the report that he filed, they were, I believe, either going into or leaving a Lions Club meeting, and they saw this large saucer-shaped craft or orb maybe, and later on I think people tried to claim that it was the planet Venus, which it turned out that it couldn't be. They were able, because they knew the date and everything, that he had the sighting, that Venus wasn't visible from that viewpoint that he was looking at. So he had an experience with these. Yes, he was some kind of an engineer, I believe, on a nuclear submarine, so he wasn't a stupid guy. And you just have to wonder, what was he told? And was he told something? Was he just unable to come to grips with the idea that these things weren't mechanical, that they were interdimensional? And was Carter the kind of guy that just couldn't? Maybe he had a kind of a 2D version of religion, and they gave him a 3D version of aliens, and the cognitive dissonance that created in his own mind kind of leveled him, I think. So I think it's important to keep an open mind about this stuff and just to explore all the different possibilities. And there's no reason. I see people sometimes get a little bit of wars about this and get angry and upset, and nothing to get upset about. We're all exploring this together. Kind of the old Indian proverb, you take a half a dozen guys blindfolded, and they're all petting an elephant. Well, each one describes the elephant as something different, because one guy's got the legs, and one guy's got the tail, and one guy's got the trunk. So the subject is so big, there could be a lot of different explanations for it. Who's to say? But kind of fun to look at. I saw that tweet about Tom DeLonge, and it does kind of line up with the same belief that's being shown by people like Tim Burchett, Representative Luna, J.D. Vance, and a few others, and even being reflected from things that people on the inside have said. So I guess we'll just keep following this. Hey, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe. Doesn't cost a dime. Until next time, this is UFO Warning. Over and out.